the 12th of August, 6 weeks into their trip across America, the couple's picture-perfect partnership began to publicly unravel.
I was distracting him from driving, I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, ma'am?
Yeah.
What you're watching is distressing police body camera vision, recorded after the couple was pulled over following reports of a domestic violence incident in Moab, Utah.
Hi, I'm calling to report a domestic dispute. They just drove off.
What were they doing?
We drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
For all their attempts to portray happiness, this was the reality of Gabby and Brian's life on the road.
I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. So I've been building my website, so I've been really stressed, and I believe that I could do any of it. That's kind of been like I don't know, he's like down there, I don't know, we just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because you're OCD?
Told me I needed to calm down, yeah. But I'm perfectly calm, I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
My instinct about what I was seeing on camera was this is bad news. I knew it wasn't going to end well. For me, it's a murder in slow motion. This was preventable.
Like millions around the world, criminal profiler Laura Richards has pored over Gabby and Brian's encounter with the police. She says it's clear that coercive control was a factor in the relationship.
This was one human being behaving in a way that was insidious, controlling and manipulative, not just to his partner, but to the police officers.
For more than an hour, police went back and forth between the couple, trying to get to the bottom of their fight. From the outset, Brian was cool and calm and tried to downplay the incident with Gabby.
Do you mind lifting up your right sleeve? I'm curious about something. Oh, okay. It's like closing there. I suppose fingernails, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about
Is it bruised or tender or anything like that?
I'm fine. I don't get it. I always see he doesn't have too many complaints about me.
Initially, Gabby tried to protect her fiancé.
There's something on your cheek here. Looks like, did you get hit in the face? Kind of looks like something like hit you in the face. And then over on your arm, shoulder, right here. That's new, huh? It's kind of a new mark.
Yeah, I don't know.
But then admitted that Brian had been violent with her.
Two people that came to us and told us that they saw him hit you. There's two people saying that they saw him punch you. We're just independent witnesses by Moonflower.
Well, to be honest, I definitely hit him first.
Where'd you hit him?
I slapped him in the face.
You slapped him first, and then just on his face?
Shut up.
Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, and then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you.
I guess, yeah, but I hit him first.
Where did he hit you? No, don't worry, just be honest.
My face, I guess. I definitely have a cut right here, like a few.
Yeah.
This could have been, and should have been, the turning point in this story. But even after pushing Gabby for the truth, police seemed to side with Brian.
From when I first got here, we were more worried about what kind of a guy you are from what we heard. But in talking to your girlfriend, it sounds to me like maybe this is not so clear cut. So.
You've just greenlit the abuser. You just reinforced his behaviour, and I think that he felt relieved. And I saw that relief. It was palpable. I saw it on camera. And he's joking, and he's sort of making jokes. And he clearly lied to the police officers, and they believed everything that he said. That makes me angry.
We sympathize with you, but based on what you've said, and based on what the witness has said, and even based on what your fiance has mentioned, trying his very hardest not to have you in any trouble, he does have marks on him that witnesses say were caused by you slapping him. And that even you say you slapped him and were aggressing him first. And I don't have anyone saying that he actually punched you aggressively.
Having identified Brian as the victim, by law, the officer should have charged Gabby. But he was clearly conflicted and discussed it at length with his colleagues.
She's got to be 105 pounds soaking wet, 22, full of anxiety, having a really tough time. Not making excuses, but I mean, it is written in the code. We do have a domestic assault here. He's not wanting to pursue it. How far do you want to go with this? Like, you know why the domestic assault code is there. The reason why they don't give us discretion on these things is because too many times women who are at risk want to go back to their abuser. They just wanted him to stop, and they don't want to have to be separated. They don't want him charged. They don't want him to go to jail. And then they end up getting worse and worse treatment, and then they end up getting...
Gabby wasn't the one at risk.
In no way, shape, or form that I can perceive does what happened here, a little slap fight between fiancés who love each other, want to be together. Can I perceive that this is going to digress into a situation where he's going to be a battered man? Right. But then again, I don't have a crystal ball.
In the end, the police ordered Gabby and Brian to separate for the night.
I'm going to let him know that you love him and that you'll see him tomorrow and stuff like that.
No other action was taken, and no one followed up with them. Do you think an opportunity was missed here to prevent this tragedy from happening?
In my opinion, there were multiple opportunities missed to prevent the escalation that happened. Had Brian's behaviour been picked up, there may have been a very different outcome.
What was it like, Nicole, for you as her mother when you saw that footage?
It's just hard to watch. I wanted to jump through the screen and rescue her. I saw a young girl that needed someone to just hug her and keep her safe. I just felt so bad for her.
For the next 2 weeks, the couple continued on their trip, posting more videos and happy snaps along the way.
She said, I'm going to Grand Teton. She was excited to go see that area. I didn't even know where it was. I never heard of it. She was just...
Hello, and welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and I'm a licensed mental health counselor. Today, I would like to discuss the Gabby Petito case that ended up very tragically and very unfortunately. Gabby Petito was a 22-year-old American girl from New York who moved to Florida with her fiancé that she met in high school. His name was Brian Laundrie. They decided to take a road trip to famous national parks in the United States of America. Gabby had a dream, or like had wishes, and she planned this journey with her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, who was 23 years old, from Florida. They planned to take their van and go on a road trip. Gabby Petito used to work in a nutrition shop in New York, and she saved a bit of money. It was always her dream to take a road trip so that she could record and upload videos in a YouTube channel. This case touches me deeply. I remember following every second, every moment of it. And I'm sure many of my subscribers or whoever watches this clip may have come across this sad case. Gabby started a road trip in a little white van with Brian Laundrie. They started off taking a trip from Florida to New York so that they could visit Gabby, his mother and stepfather, and her siblings in New York. They spent a few days there. Then they continued the road trip to Kansas, Salt Lake City, Utah, Moab, Grand Tetons, and they were supposed to go end the trip in California, Yosemite. On the 27th of August 2021 was the last time that Gabby's parents heard from Gabby. They received a text saying that there's no Wi-Fi network in Yosemite, California, so we will call you back later. Allegedly, that text could have been sent by Brian Laundrie after, unfortunately, he murdered Gabby. On the 1st of September, Brian came back to Florida. He drove 16 hours from Teton Park, National Park in Wyoming to Florida. He drove back in Gabby's white van without Gabby. Gabby's mother, father, stepmother, and stepfather kept on calling Brian to find out where Gabby was, because it was unlike Gabby to stop all her calls to her parents. On the 7th of September, Gabby's father, who lives in Florida with his new wife and children, knocked on the door of the Petitos. He tried calling them, and they wouldn't answer him where Gabby was. On the 13th of September, 2021, Gabby's mother, on the 13th of September or the 11th of September, I apologize, contacted the police station in New York where she lives. I believe it's Suffolk County, New York, and she reported her daughter missing. The Norfolk police station in Florida, where Brian is from, tried to contact Brian. They came knocking at his door, asking about when was the last time he saw Gabby. But Brian did not speak to law enforcement. The parents, Roberto and Brian's father, the Laundries, spoke to law enforcement, and I wouldn't say they spoke to them. They just gave them a card with Stephen Bertolino, the attorney in New York who represents Brian and Brian's parents. They asked the police to contact the attorney. Attorneys, lawyers, solicitors, like they call them in UK, do have an important job to do. It is important to have an attorney to represent you for many different cases that can appear in one person's life. A family needs an attorney, but I personally believe when people refuse to cooperate with the police and law enforcement and tell the police and law enforcement, we're not coming in for questions, we're not going to give you any information, contact the attorney, it usually is a sign of guilt, a sign of something that they're hiding. A search was put out for Gabby around the areas that Gabby was last seen, especially in the Teton Park, National Park in Wyoming, which is a very beautiful place. And at the same time, the police and the FBI visited the laundries once again, asking if they could speak to Brian. But the laundries said that Brian left and he went to the Carlton Resort, which is a very big resort that has wildlife like alligators, wild pigs, snakes, poisonous animals, and the place was flooded. The water level was really high up there because it is kind of the monsoon season in Florida in September. The FBI put out an immediate search, used a lot of resources, money, manpower. The FBI, the Norfolk police in Florida were all out there searching for Brian Laundrie. We saw that it took over 5 weeks while they were searching, and on the 28th of September 2021, the FBI in Colorado, near Wyoming, got the case of missing Gabby Venora Petito. They started conducting their own searches. The news got viral. It was very international news in each and every country, I believe. This was a case that drew people's attention. Luckily, social media could be used for good advantages, and it really proved that in this case, social media, YouTube especially, was good in. Red Blue Buffoon is a vlog, a couple, a family that go on road trips very often with their children. They almost live on the road trips. They went back and checked their clips because they remember seeing a small white van parked near the Snake Creek in Teton National Park. Luckily, they found that clip. It was on the 27th of August, and they handed it over to law enforcement. The very next day, with the help of Red Blue Buffoon, with their help, the search for Gabriela Petito was successful, but unfortunately, Gabby was found dead. Basically, her human remains were found because it was like a month almost a month from the time she last spoke to her parents on the 27th of August. it was a really sad case, a really sad time. I can imagine what Gabby's parents, both her mothers and both her fathers, because she has two step parents in her life too, who are really, really close to her. And she has two sets of siblings from both parties. The FBI announced, the Denver, Colorado FBI announced that they found Gabby's human remains under a tree. What was strange is that a rainbow came up near the site of where Gabby's remains were found. A rainbow came up at Brian Laundrie's house too, and a double big rainbow came up on the Carlton Resort. You can check that actually. I wanted to actually record a bit of it, but I do not want to get copyright claim or copyright strikes or whatever. It is really, I believe, a message. I personally believe in God Almighty, and I believe that that was a sign that God doesn't like evil. God doesn't like murder to take place. Gabby's blood was shed. She was strangled. The autopsy showed throttling. Basically, she was strangled. She had head injuries too. And her human remains were found under the tree. Now, after that, all that was done, they started going back to the case from the beginning. And then it was shown to us, I think 2-3 days before Gabby was actually found, her human remains, that Gabby and Brian were stopped by the Moab, Utah police. A traffic stop was made. We all mostly are aware of that because it was one of the most disturbing police stops that I have personally seen in my life. A man called from the Mayflower cafeteria in Moab, Utah. He called 911 and he said that he saw a man slapping his girlfriend. And he was obviously concerned. That was the reason he called law enforcement. Another person called too, stating that the couple were arguing and fighting in the parking place in front of the Mayflower, Utah, Moab. So basically, 911 dispatcher called the police and told them what was happening. The police followed the description of the car with the Florida plates on the license plate on the car van, and they caught up to Gabby and Brian. Gabby was clearly distressed. You could see she was full of anxiety. You could see that she was really having a hard time catching her breath. As a cognitive behavior therapist, I could see each and every red flag. I remember when I watched that clip for the first time, I literally mean it, guys. I cried. I cried because I wish I was there. I wish that the Moab law and enforcement called up for backup. Or, I know it may sound harsh to say that, but they should have arrested both of them, taken them to the police station, calmed them both down, separated them. I know they both are over 18, but they should have tried to call family or friends to find out more about the history of these two people. Let's not forget, guys, that the guy who called the police, the witness said the man was slapping his girlfriend. What part of the slapping did the police not get? It's strange. This is a young girl who was crying her eyes out, who clearly had scars on her face. She explained to the officers that he held my jaw. He took a hard grip of me. Law enforcement went to Brian Laundrie and they clearly gave him the upper hand. They labeled him the victim and Gabby the aggressor, which isn't fair. Gabby, you could see that physically she was shaking. Her anxiety was up to the roof. You could clearly see that Gabby had a hard time breathing even. She said, I have OCD. I suffer of anxiety. It was an hour and 10 minutes body camera recording that we saw. And it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't even take a mental health counselor, or psychologist, or psychiatrist, or doctor to see that. Any human being, especially a parent, can see when things are not right. Then it's about common sense. As law enforcement know the difference of when somebody calls in. The witness said the girl is being slapped. I personally believe that always follow the witness that call in. The police decided to take Brian aside. They spoke to him, they laughed, they joked with him. You could even literally see the officer, one of the officers, smiling and moving his fist around like that and saying, oh, so she pulled you and she did this and all. Oh, and Brian said, oh, you know how women are. And the officer said, yeah, I understand and all. They even told him to pull up his sleeves. And they're saying, oh, you got a scratch mark here. Oh, you got a scratch mark there. How did that happen? And then he was saying like, yeah, I was trying to push her away. And I clearly remember, if you'll hear it properly, the officer saying, oh, you pushed her because like to get away from her, to get space. So he said, yeah. The way I felt as a cognitive behavior therapist is that the officers were not only giving him the upper hand, they were in fact helping him to make his alibi. It was unprofessional what the officers did. They should have just booked them both in or taken them both to the police station. They should have separated them two in the police station and called the mental health team and let the mental health team have a talk with both partners individually and find out if this is a serious domestic violence. The witness said that he clearly slapped the girl. She said that he held my face. He took a grip of my face. So what part don't they understand? Look at how thin and small, God rest her soul, Gabby was. It doesn't take a genius to understand that this guy was the aggressor. Brian Laundrie was a manipulative, controlling, antisocial personality disorder kind of character, a narcissistic. We got to see even through his Instagram all the sick, nasty, dark pictures and characters, cartoon characters that he had about stabbing a girl figure with blood coming out from her mouth, with knives poked in. Trigger warning, guys. I don't know if you all saw that, but many of us saw that. He was reading the lullaby book. And if you all haven't seen that, I remember a couple of years ago reading a bit of it, and I thought it was so dark, about this guy who goes on a road trip and starts attacking and killing people and causing a lot of bloodshed and all. He had a very dark side. I personally believe that he sounds like he has antisocial personality disorder, if you ask me. Because honestly, we don't know his previous life. His parents refused to cooperate with law enforcement, so we would never find out if he suffered of any mental health illnesses. And I really believe serious mental health illness, not just anxiety and depression. This guy had really dark thoughts. He looked like he was bullying the poor girl. He was manipulating her. He was abusing her. Physically, mentally, emotionally. You could even see the way he was talking to the Moab police. That is the reason I believe he could easily have an antisocial personality disorder, is because of the way he was convincing them, charming them, all the lies, all the manipulation, acting like a victim. He even clearly said that she's crazy and she goes wild. He was laughing and giggling, guys, with the Moab police officers. Let's remember, there wasn't one officer there. There was 3 male officers and 1 female officer who were present there. This cannot be counted as something that was confusing for the officers or that they did not have experience. I've heard all that and I don't buy it. The reason being, I do understand law enforcement on the mental health branch. They ain't therapists, they ain't psychiatrists, they ain't psychologists, but they do have common sense. They do see more than we in the mental health branch see, although they don't have the skills to see how bad the situation is. I do understand. I'll give them the upper hand that they are not in the person's brain. So they wouldn't know much, or they don't do therapy, so they couldn't understand much. But what clearly I know about law enforcement is that they have run across many domestic violence cases and victims, and they have seen tragic endings. So Moab, Utah cannot pretend that this was the first domestic violence case that they came across. Even if Brian managed to charm them, why couldn't they put aside what Brian said, put aside what Gabby said? Why didn't they just go for what the witness said? Because the witness clearly said that the guy was slapping his girlfriend. We have this saying that we always say, see something, say something. A witness saw something and he said something, and the police ignored it. I don't know what spell or what charm Brian Laundrie hallucinated the police or hypnotized them. I don't know what he did for them, to them, that they took his side. They could see Gabby was suffering physically and emotionally, and all they offered her was water. I remember the officer with the black clothes or navy blue clothes and his sunglasses who came in the Jeep. When he went back to his car, he was talking about, even he was telling Gabby that my wife suffers of serious anxiety, and when we argue, I've noticed the best is to separate away from her for a while so that she doesn't get aggressive and all, and then she bounces back after a couple of days. Can you all believe that, guys? How dare does a grown man or officer compare his personal problems with his wife to a 22 and 23-year-old couple that are having domestic violence issues? It's like me as a therapist working with my patient, and my patient or my client tells me something about, just say, the domestic violence, and I pass it away by saying, oh, no, that's okay actually, because me and my husband, when we are having problems, or I've learned to distance away from him or not to speak to him, or that doesn't go. Who am I as a professional to be bringing my examples over to a person? This is Gabby and Brian, officer, if you ever watch. This ain't about you and your wife and her anxiety and her medication. Even if you had that example, he must have thought that he's breaking ice and opening a conversation and just passing it away and trying to make them comfortable. You never do that. You never do that. By saying that, he clearly showed that his wife is the aggressor when she has anxiety fits or attacks, and that he gives her space and she gets better. That isn't the case here. You can see, officer, that the guy who called, the witness said that the guy was slapping the girl. That is aggressive behavior. For someone to have picked up the phone, in fact, not one person, two different people called the Moab 911 or 999 and explain this and this is what is happening. A guy slapped the woman, he slapped the girl. So automatically, if I was the officer and I heard that he slapped the girl, I wouldn't even listen to what Brian has to say or Gabby has to say. I would have put them both in separate police cars, drove them to the station, called their families or their attorneys. While something is being done with that, I would have called mental health team at once to intervene. Call a psychologist, call a counselor, mental health counselor. Call, in fact, although they're busy, call the big boss. Call the psychiatrist who can clearly see if there's misdiagnosis here, or especially honestly call a therapist, mental health therapist. Call a practitioner counselor. Call the psychologist, because we deal with domestic violence every day. So we are aware of the signs, the symptoms, what to look for, etc. This really annoyed me because there was a female officer too there. And this has nothing to do with gender, but women, you'll understand me when I say we are mothers. If you're not even mothers, we're aunts, we're sisters, we're daughters. We do understand what domestic violence looks like. So do many men who have been a victim of domestic violence. It's not always the man who's the aggressor. At times, we women started too. But this was a case of two witnesses saying that the man was slapping the girl, the woman. I don't see why a witness who called in 911 would be citing for Gabby or would be citing for Brian. They called because they wanted to prevent the domestic violence that they witnessed, but they were clearly ignored. Then you have the woman officer who had a couple of minutes with Gabby. She could have tried to open her up, calm her down. There's so many different ways and skills of even talking to a victim. If I was there, I would have explained to Gabby that maybe she needs to call her parents or call a friend or call someone that she feels comfortable talking to about the situation. I would have explained to Gabby about the statistics of domestic violence. I would have explained to her that things can go terribly wrong, so not to be afraid, that we are there to support her and that she can talk freely, confidentiality, and Brian doesn't have to know. The officers could have just taken her. I would have rather booked them both in. Since it's a domestic violence, since both of them have scratches on their faces, I would have booked them both in, because both their lives could have been saved. It was very preventable. Just like Laura Richards, the criminologist who at the beginning of this clip that I recorded a bit, she's not only a criminologist, she's a psychologist like me, or mental health counselor. So she knows of such cases. I love the word she used. She said it's like giving a green light to the abuser. They literally gave him a pass and they made Gabby the aggressor. They said you have to separate yourself from him for the next 24 hours. We are going to give him a hotel since he has no place to go, and you're not allowed to contact him. We clearly heard Brian lying to the officers at the start saying he doesn't have a mobile device. But when Gabby said at the end, tell him to have his mobile on, his device on, and the police asked him, he said, yeah, I do have a number, and he gave them the number. I would have, as an officer, I would have thought, whoops, there you go. Lies are coming out now, plus what the witness said, that he was slapping Gabby. I would have taken both of them to the police station, separated them, and taken police interrogations of them. Or question them a bit, get mental health therapy for these two people. Since Gabby said she suffers of anxiety and OCD, the officer took it upon himself to explain that his wife has serious anxieties and she's on medication and he separates himself from her and blah, blah, blah. Gabby's body was found in the Teton National Park just 9 days, 10 days after the incident in Moab. Plus, the last day Gabby was seen alive was in the Maple something restaurant, the taco restaurant in Jacksonville. The couple that saw them said that Brian was acting very aggressive. He was being rude, abusive, manipulating to the waitresses there. He was thrown out of the restaurant. Gabby was apologizing for him. That is typically the signs you see of domestic violence. The victim always ends up taking the blame. It's a known fact. The victim takes the blame because it could be for different reasons. It could be that lack of self-confidence, that she believes that he will leave her, which actually, interestingly enough, it was mentioned later on by Gabby's friends and family, that her family, that Gabby was scared that he would take the van and leave her out in the national parks, which he did. After he murdered her, trigger warning, he actually had the audacity to take her van, use her credit card, and that is when the FBI put out a warrant for him because he used £1,000. What about a young girl being missing? Let's not forget that we saw the Moab incident later on. They gave the body cameras to the police. The police gave the body cameras to the media. But let's not forget when Brian went back to Florida and refused to speak to the officers, and the parents said to call the so-called lawyer, Stephen Bertolino, who just yells like a lunatic. While all this was going on, I'm sure the police contacted all the places, the Teton Parks and all those places, and they knew that the body camera existed way before they put it on the media. I'm sure they just took time to put it out because they were scared of being sued. This is why I made this topic, guys. The Gabby Petito's family is suing the Moab law enforcement for $50 million. If you ask me how I feel today, I am not shocked and I'm not disappointed. This is a heavy price for the police, for the government, and for law enforcement to pay. But just like Gabby's parents said, this is the example that needs to take place. This is the example that really needs to take place. They should be sued for much more than $50 million. After all 4 officers were laughing and joking and giggling with this stupid Brian, and Gabby was sitting in the police car crying her eyes out. The officer who said his wife suffers of anxiety told Gabby, I have a daughter your age. Officer, if you ever watch this, officer, if you ever watch this, I'm sure you're having nightmares up to today. That face will always haunt them all. They must be stressed, under anxiety, PTSD, everything. All 4 officers, if they have any empathy or any remorse as human beings, they must be suffering badly mental health-wise. I don't wish that upon them, but I expect them to be having nightmares about it. Because imagine y'all could have saved that young girl. They shouldn't have listened to Gabby. They shouldn't have listened to Brian. They should have listened to the 2 witnesses who called them and said that Gabby was being slapped by the guy. Such unprofessional behavior is unacceptable in domestic violence. If they get sued for the $50 million, I believe that all the law enforcement, not only in the United States, not only in the 52 states of the United States, I believe in the world, especially in Europe and the States and Western countries, they're going to take it more serious not to let another Gabby incident happen again. The police officer could have just gone in his car and Googled up symptoms of domestic violence. I do understand we go to university for 4 years and we go to training as licensed mental health counselors and psychologists to see the symptoms and signs of even hidden abuse. Law enforcement, Google has made it easier for you. Why don't you just check? I'm sure this is not the first case of domestic violence they came across. They were too busy laughing, giggling with Brian Laundrie like he had some spell, some charm on them, while the poor young girl was crying her eyes out. That even gave, I believe, Brian Laundrie more boost. It gave him more self-confidence to continue his abuse because he got the green light. He thought, I managed to persuade 4 officers. This is easy for me. We are in year 2022. This happened in 2021. It didn't happen in 1978 or 1992 or 2000. This the world has learned so much about domestic violence that this shouldn't have occurred. And I really am happy that they're getting sued for 50 million, because the witnesses told you that the guy was slapping the girl. It's called see something, say something, and they ignored that too. And I'm happy that the Petito family are suing the Laundries for raising their son to be such a nasty guy, to lie, murder, and come back with the poor innocent victim his car, and they managed to just give law enforcement the card, like, go talk to the attorney, like it's some kind of Hollywood movie. This is really sad, unprofessionalism. Then you have, whoa, let's not forget we have the law enforcement in Florida who thought that Gabby's mother was Brian. How do you like that? They thought that it was Roberto Laundry when it was Brian Laundry with a cap. It was Roberto wearing a cap and walking, and they thought it was Brian Laundry. So they said, we have an eye on him, everything is safe, he hasn't gone anywhere. And right in front of their eyes, he sneaked and went into Carlton Resort with alligators, and then the police and him were playing Rambo, Sylvester Stallone movie, Rambo style. For what? I personally believe if this case happened in UK, it wouldn't have gone that far, because as soon as Gabby's parents reported it to the Scotland Yard and to the Metropolitan Police, I promise you they would have arrested immediately Brian Laundrie and booked in him just for a while till they get all the statements and find out where Gabby is. Because red flag number one, he was driving her van. Not his van, her van. Red flag number two, they had the domestic violence scenes in Moab. Red flag number three, he and his parents, the Laundries, and Cassie Laundrie's older sister and her husband and her two children went on a family camping trip 6 hours to the other side of the islands in Florida. It just shows morally how disgusting the Laundries are. I am a parent. I have 3 children. I've said that many times. My oldest daughter is 26 years old. She's a teacher. If, God forbid, and I have 2 sons, if my sons, God forbid, ever did that, or my daughter did that, I wouldn't be sitting and hiding them and going on a camping trip with them. I would have said, you did what you did. Your decision making was wrong, but own up to your mistakes. Let's go down to the police station before I call the police on your ass. Sorry for my language. Because I would have thought morally it's wrong. 4 sets of parents are concerned and have lost their daughter. And my son comes home with his fiancee's van and used up her credit card. Obviously, it's not like he hid it to the parents. He told his parents what he did exactly. And the parents could have long told the police, we don't know where that Brian is, but he confessed to us that he killed Gabby and check around the Tetons. A little bird told me. They have no ethical morals. They have no shame, the parents. This anti-social personality disorder psychopath monster called Brian Laundrie infected them, the police, with some nonsense and BS stories. The police showed that they didn't believe the victim. They failed Gabby. Gabby needed a hug. Gabby needed to sit down. I wish I was there. Gabby needed to be separated from the situation. Can you believe that the police, after they took Brian and they let them go, they let Gabby in that physical and mental and emotional condition drive by herself when she said she was suffering of anxiety? She said, I've never been alone. She was scared of being alone. They let that poor girl go through all this suffering. Moab law enforcement should pay $100 million, according to me. It's sad, even if they pay trillions and billions, it will never get Gabby back. But I just hope that the police be aware that domestic violence cases is not always what they think it is. There is more into every story. The victim is the one who usually tries and blames themselves and not the partner. That just shows you they're scared of the partner. For me personally, I believe that Gabby, God rest her soul, and Brian, his domestic violence started much earlier than the trip itself. The trip was just the boiling point. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, poor Gabby's gone. Her parents have to live with that suffering and the nightmare for the rest of their life. The Laundries have allegedly lost their son. The reason I say allegedly is people are entitled to their opinions. Although the FBI and the law enforcement said that that was Brian Laundrie's skull that they found, half a quarter of his skull, I personally don't believe that. People are different. I have my reasons. It's a known fact that those areas in the Carlton Resort, there's a whole area where people's human remains and all have been thrown. They could have brought any skull, quarter of a skull or anything, and said it was Brian. The reason I say that is we saw the parents. After 5 weeks, the helicopters, the well-trained officers, over 100 men working every day, could not find Brian and his human remains, but coincidentally, the two superheroes called the Laundries came. They looked very sneaky, guys, being honest, with the backpack that spoke a bit, no emotions, nothing. The father went one direction, the mother went one direction, they both came back. All of a sudden, the father has something black heavy in his hand, and he has a small white bag. And then they called the police, and then a couple of hours later they found Brian, his human remains. Well, another red flag is when the parents knew that their son was leaving the house and what he did, because they went camping. They went camping, they were with each other singing their lullabies and their camping songs like nothing happened. They had no concern about poor Gabby or her parents. They even put out that note and the statements from the lawyer saying that we hope Gabby's parents find her. Are they trying their audacity? They mean more like, hopefully, we're praying that they find her human remains. Because they knew what their son did. And they ignored calling the police. They knew, they must have told their son, guys, allegedly, this is for entertainment purpose only. He must have said, oh, my life is done, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to the resort tonight. And they said, okay, come on, let's have a farewell. Let's get together for camping and all. They went, they sit, they discuss. I believe they sat and they discuss about how they're going to frame and plan the fake suicide with the notebook, like the movie The Notebook. He wrote a long letter saying that, oh, Gabby, look at how the antisocial personality disorder psychopath monster works. If you'll remember his letter, he clearly said that, oh, I wish things could have gone different. Gabby had an injury, a fracture on her head, so I tried to take her out of her misery and her pain. Even the last moments of his, allegedly his life, or the last moments, let's say, before he took suicide, he made himself look well. He made himself look like the hero, guys. He said that he was trying to take Gabby out of her suffering and her pain. Can you believe that, the audacity? I hope that the petitos, if you'll ever see this clip, I wish you all the well. I wish you all the best in life. May God give you all strength to look after your other children. I know this is life will never get easier. I'm saying that as a counselor. Maybe they will have better days in their life, but it'll never be the same after their daughter was murdered. But the Gabby Petito's family, I would really like to say I'm so proud of you all opening an organization for missing children, putting out awareness, and I hope you'll get the 50 million, and I hope that you'll sue the laundries like y'all are doing, make them pay, and then I hope you'll sue the North Pole or Norfolk police in Florida. They all need to be sued one by one, because the grieving period is done. It's not done, it'll never be done, but hopefully now that they're stronger, I hope the Petitos give them all an example. Not only Moab, Utah, these were not things that should have been missed so lightly. 4 officers, I can understand if it was 1 or 2 officers. 4 officers. And then, guys, you'll have, we don't know for sure, but then we have, let's not forget, the 2 lesbian women in Moab, Utah, that their case has never been solved. They were killed around the timing of Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito's traffic stop. It wasn't far from the area. The day the traffic stop happened with the police in Utah, Moab, I believe they were stopped on the 14th or 13th of July, and these two women died the next day or the day after. And it was around the same areas. I'm not saying necessarily it's linked, but many people believe it's linked. I personally believe there's something there. This guy was a serial killer, if you ask me, Brian Laundrie. With all the books he was reading and with all the darkness, watch all his pictures. He had pictures of a woman's image with knife stabs on her stomach, on her head, everywhere. He was really obsessed with darkness, with blood. And the last message Gabby's parents received, besides that we are in Yosemite, California, the network is bad. Before that, they received a message from Gabby's phone saying, "Please talk to Stan. He keeps bothering me." Till today, we don't know. We believe it's not Gabby who wrote that. Stan. Does he mean Eminem's sick song? Although Eminem is a genius at times. Dear Stan, you remember that song, guys? If you haven't heard it, please listen to Dear Stan. He kills himself, he kills his pregnant girlfriend. That song is full of dark thoughts. So we don't know if he means by Dear Stan, if he means Stan, because Gabby's grandfather is called Stan. So was Stan the grandfather keeping on calling the phone? And he must have already got rid of Gabby, so he was scared of being caught. And what I find interesting is Brian Laundrie went back to Florida while Gabby was in the Salt Lake Hotel near the airport. He went allegedly for a couple of days to give back the store unit that he rented. I wonder if he went there to collect his gun. It's just my speculation. Haven't you all noticed the Moab, Utah police didn't even check their vehicle? Isn't that strange? The police in Moab, Utah did a terrible, lousy, disappointing, unprofessional, unethical job. They should have called the mental health branch because they could see that Gabby was stressing of anxiety and OCD and everything she was saying. If they were confused and puzzled, the officer shouldn't have compared Gabby's situation to his wife who suffers of anxiety, and he said she yells and all that, and then I take a break and the distance helps. How dare you? They green-lighted the murderer, the abuser, the aggressor, and supported him with everything. And poor Gabby had to pay the price. This could have been a tragedy that could have been avoided. It's all right if they separated them, took them to the office, booked them in, or did whatever, and later on they decided to go back together, then that is not on law enforcement. People make unwise decisions, but they didn't try. They ignored the witnesses who said that the guy was slapping the girl. Period. So they should cough up the 50 million. And I hope the Petitos sue the Florida police station. This is really sad. Two, sorry guys, I'd like to end by saying, if you or anyone you know suffers with domestic violence, talk to someone, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family, whether it's a mental health counselor, a therapist, practitioner like we are, whether it's your doctor, your family doctor, your teacher, whoever you trust, talk to someone. Don't suffer in silence. Statistically, there are thousands of people who die of domestic violence every year. It's a tragedy. But it's a tragedy that can be avoided. Please, guys, if you know anyone who's suffering of domestic violence, there are places to call. If you know anyone who's suffering of mental health illness, there are places to call. And according to me, and according to mental health therapy, there are ways of dealing with domestic violence, especially when somebody wants to leave the relationship. I would always advise people, do it slowly, gently. And I personally, I'm talking I'm not talking as a counselor, I'm talking as a friend to you. Never let the aggressor know that you're leaving, because that's when it ends badly. I'm scared till today that Gabby must have told Brian that we are done. That's why he could have decided to end her life. That's what I personally believe. Because I'm telling you all guys, I believe the domestic violence with Gabby and Brian didn't start in Utah, Moab. It didn't start at the beginning of the trip. It had to have started much longer than that. I just believe Gabby was hiding it for whatever reason. You know how women are. We will put on makeup or anything to cover it up. Many people misunderstand and think domestic violence is only when somebody is aggressive to you. There's emotional abuse, there's mental abuse, there's physical abuse. There is many kinds of abuse. It's all trauma that lasts for a very long time. And we have seen how many domestic violence ends up bad with the partner killing the victim in the domestic abuse, and sometimes even killing their own children. So I hope law enforcement, I don't blame law enforcement in Moab only. I blame the governments that are not funding the mental health branch. Because mental health branch should have been in the police system. Like I know in the UK, all the police stations usually have a mental health team working there 24/7, so that they can call in therapists or psychiatrists when needed. So much evilness is going in the world, and many people are suffering of serious mental illness by hiding it. So I really hope that Moab, Utah police station and the other police stations in all the 52 states in the UK, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in Australia, New Zealand, wherever, I hope that this is a lesson that opens their eyes. And the police in Moab, if you're listening, always listen to the witness who called in. The witness clearly said that the guy was slapping his girlfriend. I won't be surprised if Brian Laundrie killed those two lesbian women who were married. I remember one was called Kylie. Their cases haven't been solved till today. And they weren't camping far from the areas of where Brian Laundrie and Gabby was last seen. And coincidence, guys, if you weren't aware of that, I'm sure many of you were aware, the case of the two lesbian women who got shot and killed, they were, one of them, the taller woman, Kylie, I believe, the taller woman worked at the Mayflower cafeteria, and outside the cafeteria is where Brian was slapping Gabby, and two of the witnesses called separate timings saying that they saw the guy slapping the girl. So I wonder if one of the witnesses that called in, I know one was a male witness who said that Brian was slapping Gabby, but the other witness, I wonder if it was one of the women, or maybe one of the women tried to stop him slapping her and he could have come back and taken revenge, because this was a very sick man. Let's not forget that. And he was carrying around a gun. That's it. So I really feel sorry for Gabby, for Gabby's parents, for Gabby's siblings, for Gabby's friends, all the victims who are suffering of domestic violence. I know YouTube streets are just platforms that people put in their opinions, but I've said that before, especially with the young boy, the autistic boy, ADHD boy, who was missing in Ohio. I offered him and his family, if they needed help with counseling, to contact me, and to my subscribers and to my listeners. If you ever don't have anyone to talk to, and you're suffering of domestic violence, I'm willing to help. We may be in two separate countries, but social media has made it easier for all of us to get in contact. We can keep it confidentiality. I would just try and advise you, or maybe just sometimes you need someone to just hear you. Look after yourselves, guys. Look after your loved ones. There's so much madness and evilness going on around the world. Look after your children. Life is too short. Let's try and spread love and not hate. The other YouTube creators need to learn the same too. I feel so sorry when I look at the Dylan Rounds case, the 19-year-old boy who's missing from Utah, strangely enough, loose in Utah. when I watch all the different channels talking about it, it breaks my heart. That is one of the reasons I haven't taken that case, because it's not good that we can speculate, but even speculation has boundaries. I don't like what's going on in the YouTube platforms. That so many YouTube platforms are just coming with BS, blaming Kurt, Scott, Tyler, Kurt is 5 wives, some Filipino, whatsoever. I'm sorry, guys. It's just become a scene of madness. Some are blaming Candice Cooley, the mother of Dylan. And I always said that. I don't support that because there's a difference. I've been watching this case way before these people started getting on this case. I don't know if y'all have noticed, guys. I'm not boasting, but you will see that I put out quickly as soon as abduction happens or missing persons case happens. I'm one of the first actually to put out, like this young 16-year-old girl who's missing from California. As soon as I put it up and uploaded it, I noticed people started catching up after 2 days. So I put out the awareness, but I don't work with all those cases, because a case like Dylan's one, the minute I heard the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, was involved, I thought to take the back seat and not bother so much, because you can't have anyone more professional than them. And for the people who keep on blaming Dylan's mother and parents, I believe they really need to grow up, because I've been watching the case from day one, and it was Candy Cooley and Justin Rounds, Dylan's parents and grandparents, that contacted the FBI. They gave this unprofessional so-called PI, Jim Cherry, JT, the chance to help them to get information about their missing son, and he went and made it into a show. And now the other channels are just adding up to piles of nonsense. Some of them call themselves God-fearing Christian channels and pastors without mentioning names, and that is completely wrong. Because if you respect your duties as a pastor, you would understand that speculation has nothing to do with religion. People are going and just spreading lies about Dylan's mother. I'm not saying that she's an angel. We don't know her. But when a parent is guilty, they usually act like Candice Wells. So to the other channels, you all got it a bit wrong. The name Candice is right, but you'll think everybody's Candice Wells. That's not the case. Candice Cooley is trying to find for her son. I've seen even people speculating that she looks like she's cunning and she looks like she's involved. You don't see any empathy in her face. Guys, let's not forget, people have different ways of mourning. People have different ways of grieving. But for her to be coming to all the news outlets, spreading the awareness, bringing the FBI in, bringing law enforcement in, means that she cares about her son. Now they're going to, so as far as to say that Dylan, his lover was a 63-year-old man called Kurt. That is really unprofessional and disgusting for people to be speculating such things. They forget that Dylan has a younger brother. He has a sister, he has siblings, he has friends, and they're just destroying his case and destroying the family's case. Guys, please spread the awareness for domestic violence, for missing case violence, and for missing cases, I mean, for mental health illness awareness. The 16-year-old girl who was reported missing on Saturday, she went to a camping ground celebration, or basically festival that they had from the high school. She graduated early. She was only 16 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, just that you'll know her description. It's in my clips down below. I really feel sorry because she was apparently intoxicated. She was drinking and partying. She decided to drive home, but then I don't know if she called her Uber, they said, and that was the last. She never took the Uber. Her friend is talking about her, and I won't speculate anything there, but I find it strange that the friend and her friends, if they saw that she was intoxicated, they should have taken better care of her, which was my friend at that age. At that age, maybe this generation is much different. At 16, we used not drink and such things, but even if she drank, her friend should have at least called her parents and made them aware. Her car and her vehicle is missing, and she's missing. The last couple of hours before I came to do this clip, I checked and there wasn't any new updates, but yesterday the FBI and law enforcement have put it out as an abduction. Hopefully that will bring more attention. And there's a sad case that happened in Oklahoma last week. I feel really sad. It disappointed me. This young man who's 29 years old, I believe, he's a young black handsome man. He has 3 children. He and his girlfriend were having domestic violence, just like Gabby and all. Gabby and Brian, God forbid, God rest his soul. And he came out on social media, recording on his social media platform. I don't know if it was TikTok or whatever, Messenger, WhatsApp, on Facebook, saying that, trigger warning, that his girlfriend, he was like basically really angry, upset, you could see, and he kept on saying, you gave me STD, you've been sleeping around with different partners, you wasted 13 years of my life, you never took me seriously, you never took my threats seriously. He ended up killing his 3 children, who are all under 7 years old. His son, who was 7 years old, called Trinity, was sitting next to him. His 2 daughters, called Karen and Aliyah, because it's on the news. He killed all 3 of his children, and a jogger who was running saw the motor running. She suspected something. She went around the car. Then she saw blood flowing from the car. She went and knocked hysterically at the neighbors. The neighbor called the police, and when the police came, apparently the police was so shook up and broken that the mental health branch and counselors had to come to the scene because they saw 3 kids. I don't know if he stabbed them, if he shot them, how he killed them. So he must have been suffering of mental illness. Or maybe it's jealousy and rage. Poor mother, she has to live without her 3 children. That's why, guys, it's important when you'll see people who are showing you signs of aggression, threats, take it serious. Some people believe that, oh, it's just a threat, it's my lover, it's my girlfriend, or it's my boyfriend, or it's my husband, or he would never hurt me. Don't misunderstand. People have lost the plot these days. I hate to say that as a counselor, but you see many evil people around. So guys, look after yourselves, look after each other. Spread love. Life is too short. Avoid negativity. Look after yourselves. And stay blessed. Thank you to all my subscribers, to my old subscribers who've always been kind and supportive to me, to my new subscribers who are always kind. I don't know what to say. I have maybe 654 subscribers. That's not much, but each and every one of them I adore, I respect, and I've noticed they all are so respectful in their comments, and that is really beautiful. We need, like my subscribers in YouTube, everywhere, because we are very mindful. We don't speculate quickly. Even if we speculate, I've noticed we mostly have the same thoughts and speculations, but we try to keep it professional. We're very mindful, so I respect that. Oh, this joke I have to share with you all. The Nicolina 777, I haven't heard anything about her, and it's not about her, but Coco, the one who was in the platform with Leah talking about Muslims, has come up and put in a couple of comments. I feel like laughing in my channel, saying that, oh, you misunderstood. Leah wasn't saying this and Leah wasn't saying that. And she told me that I think you need to come up maybe to their platforms and apologize to Leah. And then I had some comments from some people, I never named people's names, saying that BK wasn't involved and that he had remorse and he apologized to Ernie and such things. Let me start with Coco. Coco, my dear, I'm very good in apologizing, but you get zero apology. Leah gets zero apology. Nicolina 777 gets zero apology. All of y'all get zero apology because y'all need to be apologizing for criticizing Muslims, for criticizing Muslim women, putting us on the danger line, spreading hate, for attacking vulnerable people with mental illness, vulnerable people with physical illness. So, you're excused. Stop leaving me comments. If you think I'm going to apologize, you might as well wait for Day of Judgment. That ain't going to happen. I don't take nonsense. And if you're trying to tell me Leah is a good Muslim and she didn't mean that, what Leah does in a private life is her business. But when she thinks that she represents Muslim women, that's where she's really a disappointment. She and a big fat vape. That is not what Islam stands for. I'm not saying Muslims don't vape, but people do it in the background. They don't need to come up with a big vape. And she was saying all nasty jokes about Prophet Muhammad, mentioning it, God bless his soul. Disgusting things she was saying out of her mouth. And for the ones who defended BK, I ain't here to point out. I think I'm one of the YouTube creators who hardly speaks of BK. It's not that because I'm scared of him. it's because he is definitely a mental health patient, which there's nothing wrong with. But BK should come to me if he needs therapy. He knows that. He knows who to mess with it and he knows who to stay away from. So for the BK fans saying that BK did not do anything, and our BK said clearly, I hate to repeat this, big Muslim booties. So if y'all can't hear properly, you'll need to rewind back and check. Stop defending Leah. Stop defending BK. Stop defending Coco. Stop defending Stormy Nights. Stop defending Nicolina 777. Because they have no shame whatsoever. They haven't taken that clip down. Nicolina 777, you work in a doctor's office. You and your doctor needs to be checked. Because if your doctor allegedly watches your tapes and you said he doesn't care about that, shame on him and shame on you. That's not how the mental health branch is supposed to be represented, especially not the mental health branch. You're sitting there calling yourself a disgusting title about women's private parts and spreading nastiness. And Leah, stop representing Muslim women, because what you're doing is completely opposite of a Muslim women. And y'all who said that BK didn't mean it, I wrote, I think, a long comment in a very respectful, decent way, explaining to y'all for the last 3 years I've been watching BK from the first day he came out. BK was the one who destroyed Oren and Austin West, aka Cynthia and Classic's case. He was defending Trezell and Jacqueline. BK was defending Monica Sherrod, who was looking after Cash Gurnin and Carter Gurnin. And Cash Gurnin, his body was found stabbed and killed on the street. Then you have BK becoming friends with Donald Wells and Candice Wells. BK was trolling and harassing criminality, I will never forget, a year and a half ago. And many other good creators. BK was harassing Jose till Jose ended up killing himself. So whoever tried to be BK is groupies coming to my channel and trying to tell me that you misunderstood about BK. I don't misunderstand. I'm a counselor. I do active listening. I am blind. I watch every day what happens on YouTube. So before I started my channel in January, for 2.5 years, I was watching YouTube and watching the cases. All these people have no mindfulness. They're not professional. They have no empathy. They have no sympathy. They don't care about consequences, whose life it costs, or what happens to people. So I ain't entertaining BK, Stormy Nights, Nicolina 77, Coco. Coco wants an apology. Coco, you're lucky I haven't reported you. You get no apology. The only thing I apologize for is your idiotic way of spreading hate. You are behind half of the story, Coco, because you bring Leah and Nicolina to discuss and all. I think this is all planned from your sides. Stop criticizing Islam and Muslim women. Stop bothering the vulnerable people, patients of mental health and physical health. You all are disgusting, unprofessional people who need to go and seek therapy. I told you before, you'll need free therapy, contact me. You're only spreading hate. And Coco, Leave me a comment downstairs. I know you. You'll come down trying to defend someone or the other. Don't defend Leah. Leah has a mouth. She had that big mouth when she was laughing about Muslims, and that big mouth saying, I don't even want to repeat what she said about my prophet, about any prophets, about any religion. These are grown-ass women who can't behave themselves. Go wash your mouth with bleach. And guys, don't ever come and explain to me that BK is all right and BK didn't mean this, and it's not BK. BK has a history of trolling, harassing, bullying, being on the side of the suspects, not of the victims. He was sitting there chilling with Candice and Dawn instead of finding out where our beloved, precious Summer Moon Uta Wells is. I stand up against bullies. I don't entertain them, Coco. And all your BK fans, BK has a channel. If you don't like my words, nobody's entitled to be in my channel. I don't mind having any subscribers, because I love my subscribers. They're decent people, they're mindful, they're professional, and my subscribers are just like me. They don't accept hate or spreading hate or violence or bullying. So please, guys, do not support and come and try to tell me to support, not to support, but y'all are trying to kind of brainwash me to tell me that you misunderstood about BK. I was here before BK came on YouTube. I was on the YouTube chats. I was watching his nonsense. I've seen how many lives he's destroyed. I've seen how many suspects he's been hanging with. And when he said the word big Muslim booties, that was enough. If he said big Christian booties or big Jewish booties, I still would have reacted. You shouldn't be talking about any woman's booties, and especially not about it in a religious way. Sorry, guys, that had to be made clear, because I can't keep on writing it down in the comments and explaining all the BK fans about the facts. That is the facts. Monica Sherrod, Trezelle and Jacqueline, Donald Wells and Candice Wells, BK was supporting all of them. That's how you know who is good and who's bad. You can see between good and evil. Guys, remember to support the victims and not the suspects. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. When people actually think it's fun to be supporting disturbed people, like those 6 people who were in the panel discussing about hijab and Muslims and discussing about attacking each other and attacking vulnerable mental health patients. I don't appreciate that. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe if y'all enjoy the contents in this channel. To all my subscribers, have a lovely weekend. Have a lovely rest of the week. Stay blessed. Be kind. Remember, guys, it doesn't cost anything to spread love. It costs more negative energy to spread hate. No matter what faith, politics believes, no matter what differences we have, we all are usually, no matter what color, race, whatever we all have one heart, and we all bleed the same color red. Let's support each other and spread the awareness for these missing cases, for domestic violence cases, for mental health cases. That is about it, guys. Love y'all. Stay blessed. and take care. Bye.